We are the anchors of Queer News Tonight, and this evening we discuss queer headlines. A Michigan library board moved over 100 challenge books, many with LGBTQ+ themes, to the adult section without reviewing each title. This has prompted First Amendment and due process concerns from civil rights groups.
The DOJ released key evidence in the fatal ICE shootings of U.S. citizens Renée Good and Alex Pretti after months of delay. Their families and prosecutors continue to raise concerns about transparency and federal accountability.
A West Miami man was arrested after allegedly assaulting his male sex partner following a non-consensual sexual act, then threatening him with a gun, strangling him, and preventing him from calling police.
Historical novel The Original imagines Katharine Hepburn's relationship with Laura Harding, revisiting long-standing rumors about their sexuality and contributing to conversations about reclaiming hidden LGBTQ history.
Republican lawmakers challenged trans-inclusive medical language during a House hearing. UCSF defended using pregnant people rather than pregnant women, while critics rejected evidence that transgender men can become pregnant and give birth.
All this important LGBTQ+ news and more this evening on Queer News Tonight. Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily news television show, broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming channels.
Analytics company vidIQ has certified that Queer News Tonight's YouTube channel as the world's most popular LGBTQ streaming news show. Our queer stories have reached over 12 million views. We are proud that Queer News Tonight has more YouTube subscribers than any other LGBTQ brand in Florida.
We thank you for watching and supporting our voice in our rainbow family. There is no other news program in the LGBTQ world like Queer News Tonight.
It is Thursday, July 16th. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important news stories we will tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
You're watching Queer News Tonight, the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Welcome to the world's most important LGBTQ evening news show. Happening Out Television Network is a non-profit 501c3 media company in the same model as PBS and NPR, but created for the LGBTQ community. Our nonprofit mission is to support the 11 pillars of our community. We want to inform and educate on the key issues of lesbian, trans, Latino, Black, healthcare, seniors, students, faith, social justice, business, and queer culture. Help us support our diverse community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ nonprofit media companies in America, Hotspots happening out South Florida. In 2026, our magazine is celebrating 41 years of the LGBTQ experience, and Queer News Tonight is celebrating our 5th anniversary with more than 14,000 LGBTQ television stories.
We present South Florida's major LGBTQ events, including Pride Fort Lauderdale, Stonewall Pride, and Pride Fete. Our magazine, events, and television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ and broader community.
In 2026, more than 100 community leaders will sit at this table and share their voices as our anchors. Together, we host this show to support the LGBTQ community. Let's meet this evening's anchors at Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Alex Morash. Alex has served as editor-in-chief of Options Magazine, media director of the National LGBTQ Task Force, and press secretary for the Florida Democratic Party. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Why, thank you for having me, everybody. It's so nice to see you all. I just want to remind people that, I'm just in such a good mood because, this month is going to be my 21st birthday. It's 21st birthday. Don't add that up, kids. Just think I'm 21. I'm just going to lie to myself.
That's fine. I've lied to myself for years.
This is the first time we've been on since our friend passed away.
Oh, no.
I know. Yes, we're all so happy that, which Graham is it? Lindsey Graham. It's Lindsey Graham. We're so glad that Lindsey Graham's dead.
Let's welcome anchor Larry Farver. Larry has over 20 years of experience in human resources, acting, films, radio, TV, live events, parade float design, production, and casting. He is also a board member of the West Side Association. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Thank you, Bobby.
It's unreasonably hot out there lately.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, we don't even get that rain. I mean, South Florida is notorious. We should be in the middle of the season where, every other day we get a giant thunderstorm. We got
blame it on the
nothing.
Saharan dust.
Yeah. The Saharan dust and climate crisis, just saying that, denying the science doesn't mean that it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Can I just say, I love your hair. I like how it looks. Everybody.
Yours looks great, too.
Thank you.
Oh, my God. Fish for compliments sometime else.
And of course, let's welcome tonight's lead anchor, Dr. Bobby Huen. A world traveler and versatile in global affairs, Bobby provides an international perspective on current events. A PhD in conflict resolution, Bobby is a certified civil and family mediator and the founder of BH Conflict Resolution Services. Welcome to the show, girl. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm learning new skills recently. Hardly because of AI. Yes, I know.
I was hoping it was going to be like some sort of skills that you could use with like a boyfriend, but alrighty.
Oh, God. But no, hey, AI is a tool. How you use it is going to end up how it results. But we'll talk about AI later on the show anyway.
Ooh, exciting.
I'm Bobby Huen, and let's queer up the USA view. Michigan Library Board moves 100 plus LGBTQ plus books without review. The Comrain District Library Board in Michigan is facing criticism after voting to relocate more than 100 books from the children's section to the adult section without completing its own review process. Many of these books have LGBTQ plus themes. The controversy began after 12 residents challenged over 200 library books in 2025. Library Director Sarah Neidart reviewed the titles, kept them all, and reshelved or relabeled some. But after reading only 58 books over 6 months, the board voted to move the remaining challenged titles to the adult section instead of reviewing each one. ACLU of Michigan says the decision raises serious due process and First Amendment issues. The organization also noted that the challengers admitted they had not read all the books and objected to the LGBTQ lifestyle and, quote, sexual exploitation of children, unquote. It further alleged the board worked with anti-LGBTQ plus hate group Alliance Defending Freedom to create a policy giving the board final authority over book placement. PEN America also condemned the decision. Freedom to Read noted that 39% of books banned in the U.S. public schools during the 2024 to 2025 school year featured LGBTQ plus characters. It is far from surprising. That's how conservatism rely on people who either miss the small things or basically just discounted it altogether. Library boards, school boards, they flooded those zones and then set up to create their own agenda, and then to the detriment of the rest of the reading public. And of course, 12 people challenged 200 books. They probably just pull up the catalog, type in gay, and basically just list every book in there. Or sex, or whatever. And that's rich quota saying the sexual exploitation of children, when every other day we have Christian pastors getting arrested for a whole list of heinous crimes.
Oh, of course. But on the local people are like, the right puts so much effort into small elections because very crazily rich people fund that. And there's no one on the left that does that because rich people don't tend to support the left, just as if you didn't know that, as a group of people. But the Alliance Defending Freedom is a very specific hate group that I think the LGBT community has not taken seriously enough over the years. People ask, why is abortion not a right in this country anymore? Because the Alliance Defending Freedom, they did lots and lots of little cases. They do this on these issues. They've been doing this in schools for a long time. I used to cover this at Media Matters. I would write about this in The Advocate. The Alliance Defending Freedom, we as an LGBTQ community do not take this hate group seriously enough. They're the most dangerous thing happening to our community.
I agree. I mean, plus, people who are unaware, ADF is also notorious for creating straw man lawsuits. Remember, the website maker who's Christian and do not want to make a wedding website for a gay couple, or the baker who doesn't want to decorate a cake for a gay couple. They all try to push it so that they can claim First Amendment rights that these cake makers and these photographers are exempt from working with LGBTQ people just because of their quote-unquote religious views. One, as if I'm going to look for wedding photographer, I'm certainly looking for someone who advertised diversity, not just, the fact that you can pick up a camera.
I think viewers get that. Larry, what do you think?
Well, I think certainly a publicly funded library, there needs to be more due diligence. And if they only read 58 books, I mean, the only positive thing, if you want to call it that, is that they were moved to an adult section, but they didn't do their due diligence. So I would say that needs to be looked at. I mean, constantly we're seeing that these right-wing influencers are getting their way, and then the people who should be represented are not represented. In this case, the people who fund that library.
Exactly. Like, what are there, two people being in love is not quote unquote adult content. Or if it is, then you have to do the most extreme thing, which is every romantic relationship can only be for adults.
I mean, and consider how much horror movie elements are within the Bible itself. You read the Old Testament? It's,
Well, is the Old Testament in a children's section of a library?
I'm sure they are. I'm sure the Bible is in the children's section, or else they will probably be bitching about it all day long.
Well, we can't verify that. But back to the queer content in libraries, it is very scary because yes, you were talking about some important things about how the Alliance for Finding Freedom does this. I do fear that this is the start of trying to ban queer books in general.
Sure.
I'm glad that PEN America did talk about it. I will say that PEN America is not the best advocate right now because their organization's kind of messy. Their president just stepped down over a controversy. So I'm hoping that more LGBTQ groups take this more seriously and start bringing this up and talking about what's happening in these libraries.
Yeah, and maybe we need to question some of these, heterosexual themes. I mean, what are you going to do? You hate to question something like William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, two young...
Let's do it.
Yes.
Let's cause chaos, Larry.
Young people who commit suicide and...
No, but it's a romantic story. There's all sorts of straight stories that we should go after. Let's go after it. They want to do this to us, we can do it right back. I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up justice. DOJ releases key evidence in fatal ICE shootings of Renée Good and Alex Pretti. Federal investigators have begun turning over key evidence in the fatal shootings of U.S. citizens Renée Good and Alex Pretti, ending months of disputes with Minnesota officials investigating their deaths. According to the Associated Press, over the past 2 weeks, the U.S. Department of Justice transferred hard drives containing body camera footage, witness statements, and other investigative materials, along with the SUV Good was driving when she was shot. Attorneys for both families welcomed the release, but criticized the lengthy delay. Good and Pretti were killed during Operation Metro Surge, described as the largest immigration enforcement operation in U.S. history. Neither had a criminal record, and both were U.S. citizens. The evidence released comes as prosecutors in Texas and Maine report similar difficulties obtaining information following 2 more recent fatal ICE shootings, raising renewed questions about transparency and accountability in federal immigration enforcement. Well, this is one of the most dangerous topics when people don't really think about it. Whether we're talking about ICE agents, the FBI, the police, your local dog catcher, whatever. If the law does not apply to the enforcers of law, a society very quickly unravels. And the thing that scares me so much about this is these people they're committing murder. We can all see that. We all have eyes. Will a jury convict them of murder? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. But it is so essential that as this country deals with what we've just experienced, the trauma of this administration, that we prosecute these people quite aggressively. Because if we don't, I do not see this country ever being put back together again.
And also, at this point, are we even sure that the evidence is returned intact?
Well, good point, Bobby.
I mean, the problem is that we lost so much faith in the role of federal government. We used to trust federal government more than sometimes state governments. State governments might be corrupt, or the local police department may cover up something, and then FBI swoop in with a civil rights probe, and that's when the truth comes out. Now, even when the feds step in, we are not sure if we are getting the full version of the truth. We can be distorted. Evidence can be erased or modified, removed, in order to make their officers look less guilty.
Yeah, well, and part of what worries me, in addition to what we've been discussing here, is that, I think the majority of ICE agents are masked. I've heard people that I've had conversations with who support ICE, unfortunately, say that, well, then the ICE agents are in danger, their families are in danger because their identity is exposed. To me, if they're charged with reinforcing law enforcement and doing their job, they should be unmasked.
You know who else is masked? The Patriot Front, who like to march around in uniforms around DC.
Well, the other thing that I worry about is our President of the United States pardoning then these people if these people are held accountable and prosecuted.
Exactly.
Actually,
no, on the issue of like the ICE agents being like that we feel unsafe. What has, for the government to do things in a way where so many members of the public want to commit violence against you, as a political scientist, you have to really go out of your way to create that problem in a nation state. Like, there is something inherently broken when ICE agents are claiming
especially in the United States where we have decades of TV shows on popular culture where literally respect the police is the model. It was bought and paid for, and basically tell people, obey your law enforcement. And now we're seeing essentially a widespread distrust of it, and not just among minorities. There's always been that way around certain minority groups, but now it's even people who are your average suburban family who no longer trust governmental institutions where they were trained to for decades.
Well, you bring up a good point. Like, U.S. police forces have a very long history of problematic violence, and America has not reacted to police in that way. We've done protests, but there was never the sort of thing that we're seeing with ICE agents. Like, basically, the American people have a very high tolerance for being abused.
And even then, they're now basically saying that enough is enough.
I'm Larry Farver, and let's queer up South Florida and Florida. West Miami man arrested after alleged gunpoint assault on male partner. West Miami police have arrested a 38-year-old man after alleged violent assault on his male sex partner after, quote, a revolting act involving a sexual encounter, end quote. Police say Luis Alberto Negrin was arrested after officers responded around 6 a.m. to reports of a man, quote, crying and bleeding in the middle of the roadway, end quote. According to investigators, the two men had been drinking and smoking before having sex at Negrin's home. Police allege Negrin committed an act involving, quote, fecal matter, end quote, without the victim's consent, leaving the victim, quote, angry and disgusted, end quote, and sparking a verbal agreement. Authorities say the confrontation escalated when Negrin allegedly pointed a handgun at the victim's head, followed him through the home, placed him in a headlock that caused him to lose consciousness twice, repeatedly punched him, and took his cell phone to prevent him from calling police. The victim eventually escaped to a neighbor's home and contacted authorities. Police say Negrin barricaded himself inside his residence for about 2 hours before surrendering. Negrin faces charges including aggravated assault with a firearm, battery by strangulation, battery and tampering with a witness or victim. Well, certainly our thoughts go out to the victim in this crime. Certainly one of the things that may or may not help people in the future, and I don't even know if it's a thought, and I know I'll get criticism on this broadcast probably for this, is have any of the apps for hooking up, and I'm assuming they might have hooked up, maybe they met in a bar, but do any of the apps have flags for background checks that you can do, or is that like, well, it's anonymous, so you can't do it?
Well, a lot of them are anonymous for the benefit of both the user, for the benefit of
You're right. No, and I'm sorry that came out of my mouth then, but that there would be some way to. But
I think maybe another way to do this would be have when you see a profile and if your encounter has been violence, you can report it to the app company so that they can flag it and remove it. But I think that's in the age of data brokerages and data selling and data hoarding by corporations using them to exploit our civil rights. I think it would be premature to say that, hey, let's have the company run background checks. Can you imagine the chaos?
Well, let me retract what I said, and maybe I'll go further and say maybe there just needed to be a little more communication on what people were into, and maybe that still could have happened.
Well, this sounds like it was more than communication. There was a gun being drawn on someone. Like this is violence. This is sexual assault. Like
of course, no.
And like unfortunately, like, you know, you listen. I'm Mr. Lefty. Don't use the police for most things, but like this is a situation where the authorities come in, arrest someone, and they get prosecuted. That's the only way you can handle these situations. If you're physically attacking people,
you're right.
Like that's the only way to deal with it. He should not be able to get back onto an app for hopefully. I don't know what the amount of jail time is for something like this, but it's not like a week or two. Like so,
no,
unfortunately, that's the only way to deal with it.
Yeah, he can find the victim.
Yeah.
He abused him.
And this is essentially kidnapping, assault, false imprisonments. The litany goes on. And I just want to, and also I'm wondering, you know, I don't think drinking and smoking are the only thing that was involved here. I mean, you know, if you're...
And there's nothing wrong with it. Like, I'll be the first one to say, there is nothing wrong with getting a little drunk, smoking something, and having a messy time with another man. That is a wonderful thing, but this was not that.
No, this is a collapse from a hookup into a violent episode. Well, and also, can I just say that we actually have to describe the materials involved in this one?
Well, you know, and there are, you know, and in the communities out there, straight or gay, there are people who are into that type of kink, and that's a reality. But this clearly, the victims' rights were violated.
Yeah.
I'm Bobby Huen, and let's queer up entertainment. New novel reimagines Katharine Hepburn's private life through queer historical lens. A new historical novel is reigniting discussion about Hollywood icon Katharine Hepburn by imagining a deeply personal side of her life long surrounded by speculation. The original by author Priya Palmer explores Hepburn's emotional world through historical fiction, drawing on correspondence, biographies, interviews, and other primary sources. Rather than serving as a biography, the novel imagines the private life of the Oscar-winning actress and portrays her relationship with actress Laura Harding as a central love story. Palmer says the novel fills in what history left unsaid. The novel also revisits Hepburn's carefully managed public image, including long-standing rumors about her sexuality that she addressed in her 1991 memoir. Hepburn wrote, quote, "People gossip about Laura and me, and I never knew it. There was a very strong rumor that we were lesbians," end quote. Palmer's novel demolishes the never knew it story. According to the book's supporters, the original contributes to ongoing efforts to reclaim LGBTQ history by re-examining the lives of influential public figures whose identities may have been shaped or concealed by the pressures of Hollywood's golden age. The original gives us a glimpse into what may have been Hepburn's reality rather than the carefully crafted persona she presented to the public. Well, I'm torn on this. One, Miss Hepburn as a famous figure, and I assume by now, if we couldn't find anything, that means that she has left no written evidence or recorded evidence of her being gay or lesbian. And second, this historical novel, quote unquote, it smacks. I am a big fan of Archive of Our Own and fan fiction. I read a ton of them. They're entertaining. They help me go to sleep at night. But there's a genre of fan fiction, literally called RPF, real person fan fiction, which basically takes a celebrity, let's say Eminem, and then writes fictional stories about him. And those are sometimes wildly inappropriate and wildly speculative about some person's private life. And I find those to be somewhat inappropriate. And I feel like splicing Hepburn's name into this essentially inspired by Katharine Hepburn and Laura Harding fanfiction, they could have just used fictional names for that. They don't need to use like Hepburn. You need to use Hepburn and Harding.
No one's going to buy that book, and the writers write books to sell them. Like, that's what this is about.
I dispute that. Fan fiction has been sold, repackaged real person fan fiction has been sold. Ever heard of a series called Hater Rivalry? Those were all originally fan fiction written for other characters. Some of them are copyrighted characters. And real people too, including real hockey players. Well, and then the author had to remove the names and change the characters so that it becomes fictional. 50 Shades of Grey was based out of based out of some other fan fiction universe.
Well, that's probably the line you walk too, but between being a public figure, even if you're deceased, it'll be interesting to see if a case like this or similar types of storylines may have, estates of people questioning or presenting lawsuits.
Perhaps, like, this idea that we're reclaiming history, it feels more like revisionist history is what this is. And I think that's a very dangerous thing for the LGBT community to start going on. Because, like, I look at this and I think of other, like, people in history. And, like, one, I do not like the idea of putting a label on someone that they did not use themselves. Like, I think of, like, Sylvia Rivera, wonderful queer person, wonderful trans icon. She actually didn't use the word transgender to describe herself, and that's okay. She can be whatever she wants to be. Like, so I always remind people when, like, people talk about Sylvia, I'm like, well, look at what identities she described and try to echo those when describing her. If Audrey Hepburn says she's not a lesbian, it's not right for us to throw that on her without at least true actual proof. Well, and even then you have to be careful.
It may be an example of maybe something that's more factual, would be like the celluloid closet or something like that.
Exactly. Well, that celluloid closet is a great look at, like, how media portrays queer people.
Yes.
That's one, like, Vito did a great job of that.
Yes.
Although Vito came out as queer, so we could talk about his queerness. Like, so someone who doesn't say they're queer, never showed it, and just claim them without them wanting that label, to me, that's...
And plus,
come on, kids.
Plus, Hepburn is by herself a great icon for women. I mean, and the independent streak and her non-conventional or non-gender conforming style has always. You can be a gay icon without her coming out, without her being outed to say that she is a lesbian.
Right.
We have gay icons that are heterosexual.
Well, to be subversive, as a feminist icon who is strong, independent, she can wear a pantsuit, she doesn't have to wear a dress. Like, to assume that makes her a lesbian, actually highly problematic and
it's
like,
a little
really
regressive.
heteronormative. It actually is, in a way, homophobic. I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up health. Republican lawmakers clash with medical school leaders over trans men and pregnancy language. Republican lawmakers questioned medical school leaders over inclusive language during a U.S. Education and Workforce Committee hearing on diversity, equity, and inclusion in medical education. The hearing, titled Training Activists, Not Physicians, The Impact of DEI on Medical Schools. Scary stuff, people. Featured leaders from the University of California, San Francisco, UCLA, and the University of Illinois. Representative Mary Miller challenged UCSF's Chancellor, Dr. Sam Hawgood, about teaching materials that recommended using the term pregnant people instead of pregnant women in some contexts. Hawgood said the guidance helps prepare students to care for a diverse patient population. Florida Representative Randy Fine then pressed Hawgood on who can be pregnant besides women.
Dr. Hargood, under questioning from Ms. Miller, you said, quote, the vast majority of pregnancies are in women, end quote. Who has the other pregnancies?
It's possible for transgender people.
So wait, so transgender people? I thought a transgender woman was a woman. So you said the vast majority of pregnancies are in women. So who are the other pregnancies?
They don't recognize themselves as a woman.
What?
You heard what I said. They don't transgender.
So there are people who are pregnant who are... Just use your made-up language.
Rare.
Who are the other people who are pregnant in your kooky worldview? You said the vast majority of pregnancies are in women. Who are the other pregnancies in?
A transgender person.
A transgender person. The answer, I presume, in your kooky language would be a transgender man. I don't know why you won't just admit that. A transgender woman would be a man who's pretending to be a woman. So why won't you even say the truth in your own screwed-up view of the world, that the other pregnancies are transgender men? Why won't you just say that?
I'm happy to say that.
Okay, so say it.
Transgender men.
Transgender men get pregnant. That is your view. So okay, that's insane.
Fine later posted on Twitter, quote, today in Congress I asked a simple question, who else gets pregnant besides women? The witness said transgender men. I told him that's insane because it is. Men cannot and will never be able to get pregnant, end quote. On the other hand, medical organizations note that transgender men can become pregnant if they retain a uterus and ovaries, and documented cases of trans men giving birth have been reported for years. Well, kids, I am sorry that we have another case about fecal matter with Randy Fine here. Talk about one of the worst human beings in the world. Watching him talk to medical professionals, claiming that they're the kooky ones. And I'm like, I'm sorry, when I see crazy in front of me, I see crazy, and it's not the medical professional in this one.
The framing, the linguistic framing here is deliberate. The whole idea that, first of all, trans women are not men pretending to be women. That's a scare language designed to basically tell the Midwestern housewife that, a man pretending to be a girl is going to your girl's restroom and assaulting them. That's the kind of language they drum up to fearmonger away trans rights. And second,
especially because those women should be far more afraid of those other ladies stealing their husbands.
And second of all, the kooky, insane, they are trying to frame, they have been actively, this administration is trying to actively frame anyone who comes out as trans as mentally ill and therefore eligible to be institutionalized or worse. Well, that's...
But Larry,
yeah, I don't know when this gentleman's going to be up for re-election, but when you put
every 2 years.
Okay, so people, this is a representative representing Florida. Think about who you're voting for.
I hear you.
Politicians has been trying to masquerade as experts.
But he's a representative of the people, and he's being abusive.
Exactly.
He's not representing all the people by saying things like that.
Oh, and he's terrible with this stuff. He's the same guy that, when he was a state senator, people would go and testify, and he'd bicker with them. And I'm like, most lawmakers, if they don't agree with you, they just ignore you.
We can blame our chief, our president, for creating a divisive country. Right. Where people have no respect.
But there's also an important health issue, Bobby. They're deciding to bring doctors and medical professions in to scare people on trans issues when there's actually real health issues going on. There was an LGBTQ reporter that just did a whole big story on how private equity is buying hospitals, and that leads to worse healthcare outcomes. And instead of Congress being worried about that, worried about our lives when we go get medical care, they're harassing trans people and medical professionals. It's disgusting.
And being in healthcare myself in administration, there is an obligation to educate all the staff within the hospital that some people who can have a baby may present as men and they are transgendered, but that's a transgendered man can have a baby.
There are intersex people who are neither male or female biologically, who have uterine tissues and can get pregnant. Yes. They are not large amounts of cases, but cases exist. And doctors are supposed to treat everyone, not just everyone that's got ideologically approved of by the state.
The patients have a right, and it's not a DEI thing, it's a human thing to treat people humanely.
Exactly.
Bottom line.
It reminds me, too, when I first lived in D.C., the Whitman Walker Clinic, and, on one of the social media, there was a trans man talking specifically about how important this is, because, they were looking for personal care for their body, and they didn't know what materials to look at because all the stuff about uteruses and were only for women, and they weren't sure if any of the materials were for them, and they felt very uncomfortable. It's like, yes, it's perfectly natural to have some documents for trans men to understand their body, for trans women to understand their body. For me, as a weird gay boy, I should have my own little pamphlet about my weird body, for Christ's sake.
LGBTQ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up politics. Don Lemon says he is totally serious about exploring a run for U.S. president. Speaking on the Can't Be Censored podcast, Lemon said, quote, "I am being totally serious. I actually think I would be a really good president of the United States. People keep asking me to do it," end quote. Lemon said he has already spoken with political insiders about the logistics and timing of launching a campaign. He added that he would rather build a grassroots campaign than rely on major donors. While no formal campaign has been announced, Lemon said a decision could come closer to the 2027 or 2028 election cycle. Good for Don. We are going to have a very crowded field this coming presidential election. Assuming that they're not going to try to renominate, who again?
Kamala.
No, well, I mean that.
You think we're going to nominate Joe Biden? I could see some Democrats trying to nominate Joe Biden.
I'm worried. I think. I mean, without saying anything, due to the fact that it's still so far away, we probably are going to have a wide open field, at least on the Democrat side.
As a former party staffer and someone who looks at all this, this is supposed to be a 1-minute news, but whatever. One on Don. Let's first start with Don. I think he's a sweetie pie, though he may or may not have been fired for inappropriate comments on CNN or homophobia. CNN's a mess. Let's just be honest. But like, if he were to run, I think the thing that might haunt him, while I thought it was amazing to watch him be very drunk on like 2016 or 2017 New Year's for the New Year's, and drunkenly get his ear pierced and tell another reporter on air about why he thinks he's not very good at finding a boyfriend. I think that's adorable. I think that'll hurt him running for president, quite frankly.
I don't know.
But on the idea of who's going to be the Democratic nominee, one, yes, everyone in this is going to run for president. You should run, Bobby. I should run. We should all run. Everyone's going to run. Why not?
To get totally political, but I think, Pete Buttigieg, he served in our armed forces. He has, a good family model. He's had exposure. There may be a better candidate, but I think he's a great speaker. He certainly put people on Fox News in their place.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there's John Ossoff recently who is coming out swinging. I mean, James Tallarico is great as a speaker. And he reached a lot of people who otherwise shut their ears off from blue politics.
You also hinted something about where I'm going to go. One, you mentioned 3 millennials. So this is I remember in 2020, there was some data on who the primary voters in the Democrat 28 primary are going to be. 2/3 of them are going to be millennial and Gen Z. I've been saying for a while, I think the most likeliest candidate is most likely going to be an unknown and or a millennial. So Dawn is one of the two, but you're hinting at it. I don't know who it's going to be, but it's going to be a wild card.
It's going to be very interesting come primary season. And
LGBTQ 1-minute news. Let's crypt the USA View. Trump administration formally rescinds Biden-era LGBTQ foster care protections. The Trump administration has formally rescinded a Biden-era rule aimed at helping LGBTQ children in foster care access safe, supportive, and affirming placements. Introduced in 2024, the rule required federally funded child welfare agencies to identify affirming foster homes and provide staff training. Although a federal judge blocked the rule before it took effect in 2025, the administration has now officially removed it. The Department of Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Adams said, quote, "The message that we think it sends is that all families are welcome. We have too few foster families nationally. We must roll out the red carpet and we must ensure that there's homes there waiting on kids, not kids waiting on homes," end quote. Representative Mark Takano, however, criticized the decision, saying rescinding the rule without an alternative puts children at risk. No placement policy has been announced. Well, when we all thought Donald Trump couldn't be a more awful human being, he's trying to make sure that children aren't necessarily placed in loving homes, that they could just be put in a big home. And that's just nice, ladies and gentlemen. That's just a wonderful day, right? This is what we deal with.
And this is, another way for the government to fail to help the most vulnerable among us. I mean, they're children, for God's sake. I mean, so you're basically saying that, the whole thing about, these parents would not have opened their doors to foster children if we limit or put training on foster parents on how to deal with LGBTQ kids. Maybe they shouldn't be foster parents in the first place if they are going to be so bigoted about it.
Thoughts, Larry?
Well, why put a child in with the wrong match and, create PTSD? I mean, that's
the whole point.
Of course. LGBTQ 1-minute news. Let's queer up the USA View. Gay couple who donated 180,000 backpacks to those in need die within days of each other. Jason Connor and Jeffrey Newman, the gay couple behind the nonprofit Backpacks for the Streets, died just days apart after years of supporting unhoused New Yorkers. The couple launched their charity in 2018, and by 2026 had nearly 40 volunteers helping distribute about 180,000 backpacks filled with essentials including toiletries and underwear. The pair would have celebrated 22 years alongside on July 7th. Alongside his homelessness advocacy, with Connor, Newman was also an advocate for people living with HIV. Well, our thoughts and condolences go out to the family and friends of both gentlemen. It's tragic, but hopefully this will be a legacy. Hopefully there'll be some type of acknowledgement and permanent remembrance that the city of New York will take on. Hopefully the mayor, other people of office will recognize this, and hopefully,
Yes,
their story lives on and sets an example for others.
I mean, not all heroes wear capes, as they say.
That's right.
Sometimes they bring backpacks for people who are homeless. And especially with LGBTQ people, one of the highest homeless population in the United States. Any little bit helps. So hopefully their legacy will live on, especially their 501c3.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hate to see the organization who is doing good work get shut down because their founders have passed on.
No, this is such a sad story. They are heroes because one, few people realize just how important mutual aid is and helping each other. And looking at this story, I was really thinking about it ahead of time because people talk so much about different ways to help transient populations. This is one of those things that's yes, we want people to be housed. I am big old, rip the rich people out of their houses and put poor people in them. I love that sort of stuff. But in all seriousness, housing people can sometimes be a very long, complicated process. People need immediate help, and giving people backpacks with supplies is a very important direct action that you as any individual can take. And it's so important, whether you're making sure that people have meals, people have access to essentials. It's so important. It's so important that in some places they try to outlaw helping homeless people in this way, which means that it's really important stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we down here in Florida, police are literally arresting pastors who are passing out free food to the unhoused. That is inhumane. The whole idea that somehow homeless people can pull themselves up by their bootstraps when they have no phone number or registered address to find a job. It's infuriating. It's disgusting.
And these two weren't just talking, they were doing, and that's great. Yeah,
and to think that in the 8 years that they had this charity, the number is astounding, to hand out that number of backpacks in the people's lives that they may have turned around and given them hope. $180,000. 180,000 backpacks, I'm sorry.
LGBTQ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up sports. Megan Rapinoe says AI screening cost her a World Cup campaign over trans support. Soccer star Megan Rapinoe says she lost a World Cup advertising campaign after AI software flagged her support for transgender rights as a risk. In the July 13 op-ed for Marie Carey, Rapinoe said a brand used AI to evaluate potential talents and rejected her because she spoke in support of trans rights. She wrote, quote, "Anti-inclusion politicians have made conversation around trans athletes in sports so muddied and so full of false fear-mongering that brands lacking moral clarity are running from mere association," end quote. She also criticized Washington State's proposed measure I-638, warning it could require medical certification for girls to play sports. Well, first of all, that's the whole point of these push on anti-LGBTQ. And plus, of course, depends on which AI model you use. As an experienced user of AI, although I would not touch certain models like Meta or Grok, there are the reason that the tech oligarchs love those so much is that because they're hoping that you will replace critical thinking with an AI-generated result. And this, obviously, whoever is running the marketing campaign for that particular brand basically just plug it into AI and say, oh, that's a red flag, and take it to the boss, and no one actually critically thought about it for any second. I mean, you guys have who are paying you for these marketing stuff? I mean, if it is just AI determining who is deserving of a sponsorship, then AI can do everything. You don't need to exist.
Well, you have no idea if they actually did or didn't make a more directly homophobic decision. We have seen companies abandon our community again and again in the last 2 years. this is just a reminder of every queer that thought we could deal with businesses and not understand that big corporations were always just going to be fair weather friends. They're going to come back to us the moment like we're in again, but like just be more critical with them. But with the AI thing, like I occasionally use AI to help me write the code to build like an economic model. You know exactly what you're doing unless you're a fool. It wants to tell you everything. AI loves to talk about itself. It loves to talk about itself more than Bobby and me, for Christ's sake. Like, so these people knew what they were doing. They should be absolutely held responsible. And yes, people, never trust a corporation to be an ally.
No.
LGBTQ 1 Minute News, let's queer up entertainment. Beartooth's Caleb Shomo files for divorce weeks after publicly coming out as gay. Beartooth frontman Caleb Shomo and his wife of 14 years, Fleur Shomo, have filed for divorce nearly 2 months after the singer publicly came out as gay. Court records show the couple jointly filed in Los Angeles Superior County. They have no children. Shomo announced on Instagram in May that he is, quote, a proudly gay man, end quote. Fleur responded by saying she would continue to love and support him and encourage fans to do the same. Speaking on the Disrespectfully podcast in June, Shomo described coming out to his wife as terrifying. He recalled telling her, quote, there's something there that I've been running from a fucking long time and I don't think I want to run anymore, end quote. He added that he began therapy immediately and acknowledged he has a long road ahead. Well, you know what? Besides the fact that he's pretty good for him for finally coming out and telling his wife, because like, you know, there's a difference too, I think, between the men that like lie to a woman and those that just they go on a journey and they figure it out. And this sounds like it was a journey. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. It's 2026. I assume guys don't do that anymore.
Music industry is, despite what we think of the music industry, the music industry, especially certain genres, we're talking about rock or country, they are not exactly most welcoming of the LGBTQ.
Oh yeah, no. Looking at those photos, he had such a heteronormative vibe about him.
You know, but metal bands have been known to be extravagant. I mean, the hair bands back in the 80s, a lot of them are not necessarily open to LGBTQ fans, but they still dress like they're drag queens anyway. But
Queen was so straight.
I mean, not just that, but
he was out.
But now it's fronted by Adam Lambert, who is also not straight. but I was thinking like, you know, Kiss, or currently Gene Simmons are very cozied up to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So not hard to guess what his opinion on our community is.
Well, yeah, and coming out is a process. Not everybody, unfortunately, when we have libraries suppressing books or putting them where kids don't have access, you don't have the models. And it's an evolution. And I think probably many of us have known people who maybe have got married, had children. I know an example where someone was 40 years old. He had 4 boys. And now he's been in a marriage with someone who's the gay marriage for 30 years. And there's not a cookie cutter way to come out.
Yeah, no, there's no, it's not like when we realize our sexuality, it's not like we got handed on the LGBTQ plus coming out handbook. I mean, we should have one, but the point is that, people come out on their own pace. Some people grew up with more conservative ideas because of their family, and they try to prevent themselves from living their authentic self for a long time.
Exactly. And Bobby, you should write that handbook. And, remember to everyone as we finish up, love yourself. Come out. If you're not sure what you are, that's okay too. You can change what you want every day of the week. God knows I change what colors I enjoy and what hats I like.
These are today's headlines from Queer News Tonight. Our anchors represent the best of our LGBTQ family.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Don't forget to join the conversation on our favorite streaming platform. Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines.
We need your support. If our community is to grow and then thrive, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Bobby Huen, and I thank you for joining us on behalf of my fellow LGBTQ anchors here in Queer News Tonight. Alex Morash, and Larry Farver. We'll see you daily at 8 p.m. to our LGBTQ plus world. We wish you a good night.
Night.